Anything going down on Brokeback Mountain? Let me remove Party Foul Steve from the scene right there because he's in the woods playing Brokeback Mountain. I texted him this morning. I said, can you be moderator? You're going to be able to do it on Before the Noise. He's like, I can't get before you. I can't get Rumble out here in the woods. Yeah. I said, that's some Brokeback level wilderness right there, bro. I actually I wish I was out there with him, man. And it's going to be, I like to hunt. I just like to hunt. I like to fish. I like doing outdoor stuff. And I don't do enough of it right now. And I get people who invite me all the time. And I mean, I can go do it. I don't need to be invited. I can go do it. It's just finding the time to do it, right? And so I'm kind of convicted that I don't take the time to do it. But I'm going to change that. I really am. But you know what? I enjoy doing what I do. Like, I enjoy this. I like talking to you guys. I like hanging out with everybody. So welcome to the Chad Prather Show's Thursday. It's our last day of the week. Pray for David Medina. He's sick. It's not the HIV. I don't know what it is, but he's not feeling well. So I got Steve is out there he's out there in the tent somewhere. Look at him. He's in the chat for a minute anyway. We'll see what happens. That's what he said. And then David's under the weather, so we're praying for him and praying for both of them. Pray that Steve will get some big giant monster, superhuman buck will walk out there in the field in front of Party Foul Steve. And then he'll miss it. So I have to listen to that for the next 6 months. So I want to break right in here in a moment with this Epstein stuff. And I know you're like, we've talked about it. No. Here's what I'm going to do. I want to use this episode, if you'll bear with me, guys. I want to be able to stick this link in front of people's faces and say, you're too stupid to go find information on your own. You're too dumb as a functioning human being. I'm being mean right now, and I mean it. I get so many messages. Anything that gets posted about me, somebody's got to say, well, what's in that binder you got? If you're so dumb that you can't use the information superhighway known as the World Wide Web to discover what all of us have revealed about that dumb binder that we were not there for, that we didn't ask for, that, you guys know the story. So I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to tell you what this looks like in light of the House and the Senate and now Trump signing for the release of the Epstein documents. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you, and then I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to talk about God for a little while because I'm going to talk about the nature of sin and why we have to deal with stupid things like Jeffrey Epstein. And then I'm going to tell you about Donald Trump's relationship, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Verifiable facts about Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm at a point now where the chips can fall wherever they fall. And I don't, I get lumped in to the whole blowing the smoke up your butt crowd. I'm not doing that. I have tried to always speak honestly with my convictions about the things that I believe. Doesn't mean I'm always right. I know the first rule of the Chad Prather Show is Chad's always right. We can joke about that. And I mean the law of averages, I'm above, right? I'm pretty much right. But I reserve the right to be human at the same time. And I want to get into some truth today. I want to talk about it. I'm going to tell you about my friends over at Birch Gold in a little while. And that's going to be the only ad read of the day. I'll probably push some other stuff. But let me just jump right into this thing. Because this is something, this Epstein deal, which again is a symptom, not the disease, but it's a symptom of something that exists there. This Epstein deal, it reaches into the center of national trust, and we don't have much of that anymore. It reaches into the idea of national accountability that's there. We don't have much of that anymore. The integrity of our institutions, we haven't had that in a long time. And so President Trump has now signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act. I'm so happy he didn't veto that. But it's a law that's going to force the Department of Justice to release unclassified materials, and I guess classified material that declassifies the materials related to Jeffrey Epstein within the next 30 days. And with Trump's signature, I think that potentially the fuse has been lit under the entire system of the elite power. But what's going to happen? Because when you pull the curtain back on corruption at that level, you're not just revealing names, but you're revealing potentially a network that they relied on. And so I want to talk about why this moment matters and what it reveals about the state of our country and what everyday Americans, you and me, have got to demand moving forward. You can go back. I encourage you to do it. It's some pretty good little investigative journalism we did back in the day. Back on The Blaze, where we did a deep dive, 6 episodes, I think it was, on Jeffrey Epstein. This was right after he didn't kill himself. And millions of people watched that. I was pretty proud of that work that we did because we exposed some things that people just didn't know about Jeffrey Epstein. And there's still a lot of myth surrounding this guy. But the Epstein story has been a dark cloud over this nation for a long time because, again, it's a symptom of something that's going on that has not been dealt with, and it's tragically overlooked. And it's hovered over the edge of every conversation about justice and corruption and the elites of our world and the disturbing ways that powerful people use their influence behind closed doors. It's disgusting. And everybody knew something was wrong, right? Everybody sensed that there were layers to this that still hadn't been exposed. We know that. That's what it's all about. That's why sitting there amongst 15, 16 people in the West Wing of the White House in the Roosevelt conference room right through the door from the Oval Office when Pam Bondi brought those notebooks in there and it said phase 1 of the Epstein files, our mouths dropped open. And then she said, don't open it now. Let's talk about it. We all wanted to know. We were hoping that this administration was going to be transparent. Then we got into the hoax nonsense, and I'll explain to you later on why the phrase hoax even came up. Everybody has recognized that if the truth ever came out, it was going to rattle the foundations of a lot of institutions that would rather not be rattled. I mean, we're talking life and death stuff here. And I hope that day is sort of approaching. If you don't have a little element of trepidation within you, a little nervous energy about what this could bring, you're not paying attention. Because we're talking about unraveling everything that you've grown to love and accustomed to. It brings you some first world comfort. I mean, everything. Life as we know it could potentially change. And you don't need to make any mistake about this. I'm not overplaying this, and I'm not overstating it. This moment is not about reliving the past. It's about determining the future of everything we know, but particularly accountability in America. I'm here for it. I'm at the little cabin in the woods. I'll make it. I'll move out there with Party Foul Steve in the tent, and it'll get real broke back. We snuggle. It gets cold. But the thing that makes this moment extraordinary is Congress didn't just kind of limp this bill across the finish line. It passed it overwhelmingly. I mean, the House vote was 427-1, so let that sink in. Think about it. The political climate where people can't agree on what day it is, the issue was so undeniable and so necessary that nearly every elected representative said the public deserves the truth. Now, I want to talk to you about what that means and what it could potentially look like. The Senate then followed suit. And now, with the president's signature, the Department of Justice is legally compelled to release these documents. We're talking about unclassified travel logs. We're talking about financial ties, communications, internal notes, anything that sheds light on who Jeffrey Epstein was working with, who benefited from his network, and who may have enabled his crimes. Now, that's what we want to find out. Am I right there in the chat? Would you blow this thing up? Can I see you guys? And I want to be completely clear, this does not guarantee full transparency. Yeah, that's what I said. It doesn't guarantee it. I've said this over and over again. I want to just keep hitting this hammer and just hitting this nail with the hammer. Some material can still be redacted. For instance, you got to protect victims or legitimate national security concerns, which that in and of itself pisses me off because tell me what our national security is built on if a known pedophile, his life, crimes, and death are going to bring our country down. Just how insecure is our national security? And is it built on that level of secrecy and debauchery that I don't know that I want to be a part of anything that fabric of society is woven into? And you know what? I get it. You don't want to threaten national security, and we certainly don't want to expose victims that don't want to be exposed. But the burden is now on the government. Aren't you excited about that? So if the pages come out blacked out, the public's going to want, they're going to want to know why. If entire sections are disappearing under the label of ongoing investigation, we're going to ask how long the investigation has been ongoing and why it conveniently keeps the truth out of the public hands and out from in front of our eyes. So the ball's no longer in the shadows. It's on the table and the clock's ticking, right? 30 days. Now, from my perspective, and maybe yours, I don't speak for you, but I just want to know what you think here. This moment is more than political, it's philosophical. Because you and I, conservatives, we believe in accountability, right? We believe in limited government. We believe in the rule of law, but that only works when the government itself is accountable. You can't have a country where elites are protected while the citizens are prosecuted. How many subpoenas have been issued to the elites, whether it's the Clintons or whoever else, and they just don't show up. You can't maintain a republic. Can't do it if justice bends to influence. And you can't sustain trust when one set of rules applies to the powerful and another set applies to me and you. So that's why this release matters, because sunlight isn't partisan. Light shines on it. It doesn't ask your permission. It shines by its very principle. So I just warn that before we celebrate a victory too quickly, and I'm glad that this happened. I really am. I've been wanting this, been begging for it, been asking for it. I get accused of trying to protect pedos or trying to hide. Where in the world do you come up with this nonsense BS? Who's trying to protect pedos unless you're guilty of something? We need to look at what's really happening here. Now, you got people out there that are relieved. Obviously, we talked about, the old boy at Harvard. Go watch my short video yesterday about Larry Sanders. He's backing off there at, OpenAI and his position at Harvard. He tells his class he feels guilty because of his associations with Jeffrey Epstein. We don't know what that means. So some are nervous. I think there's a lot of us out there that are outraged that this took this long. I know there's people out there that are lawyering up. They're already preparing their excuses. But this moment reveals something a whole lot deeper than all of that. It reveals the fear powerful people have when transparency is forced instead of volunteered. The dread of exposure, the panic that comes when the public gains access to the one thing corrupt institutions hate more than anything else, and that's truth. See, they've been able to live in that web of hypocrisy, right? They can preach to you about climate change and then get on their private jets and fly to Davos, go to their little exclusive places. They can tell you that the floodwaters are rising while the Obamas move into a, multi-million-dollar mansion on the banks of Martha's Vineyard. They could do all of that, right? Because they know their hypocrisy is insulated. And although we all know they're hypocrites, nothing ever touches them with it because they've gotten above all of that. They're protected. It's an insulated class. But the question now becomes, what are we about to see? Like these people that have historically been protected and insulated, what are we going to see? Are we going to see some familiar names? I have my doubts. You're going to keep floating the same things around, but is the insulation still going to protect them? That ticks me off if it does. Are we going to see a pattern of behavior that goes beyond just one man? Are we going to see, a pattern, that's a good word, but are we going to see how deep the rot goes in the political circles, in the Hollywood circles, the financial circles, and every other circle that's out there that we know is out there in control? So will the release be so redacted and so filtered that we can learn just basically nothing that we don't already know? And again, we don't know yet. But we do know this: the American people are watching with a sharper eye than ever before, and that's a good thing. Someone said, who was it? Mike Johnson came out. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson came out yesterday in a press conference. He says, this is really going to cause people to have it. I'm paraphrasing, have a distrust in their government. No kidding, Mikey. No kidding, Mikey. Maybe wipe the smudge off your glasses and see a little clearer. We don't trust our government at all. People want to talk about, you're really, Israel this and Israel that. I don't trust Israel. Don't care about Israel. I don't care about Israel. I don't trust them. I don't trust Netanyahu. I don't trust any of them. I don't trust this government here in America. So again, what am I supposed to trust? I mean, you shut us down for several years over the COVID crap. I mean, you lost trust in every institution that was out there. And that wasn't the nail in the coffin. I don't know what was. But we got this appetite for accountability. And it's never been higher. And so I want to talk honestly about what this means culturally. I mean, we live in a time when trust in institutions has just cratered. And that's unfortunate because a republic can't stand like that. You got to be able to believe in your courts. You got to be able to believe in your branches, whether it is the judicial branch or the legislative branch or the executive branch. You got to be able to believe in them. You got to be able to believe in your financial institutions, your medical institutions, the people that control your health, the people that control your medicine, the people that control your education. You got to be able to trust in those things, and we don't. And we pat ourselves on the back like that's a good thing. It's a really crappy thing that we live in a society where we don't have any trust. That's not how this country was founded. Our country has become evil. Those who claim to lead it have become evil. They're evil. They're steeped in it. And they're protected within it. And so people don't believe the government's going to tell them the truth. Even, I don't care how many papers you sign or how many things they declassified. I mean, they talked about releasing JFK files. Is anybody more educated today? I mean, we went through all that debacle, right? What about on the MLK thing? Anybody more educated on that? Are your eyes open to the truth in a bigger way? What about the alien stuff, right? What do we know? They keep declassifying everything. You don't know anything more. I mean, if I'm missing it, I'd love to hear from you guys and tell me. They no longer believe. American people don't believe that major corporations have their best interest in mind. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to talk about the president lowering egg prices. No, they've already seen what they can get away with, man. They already have seen what they can do. They can gouge you, control you, lock you down, shut you up. They can quarantine you. You can't go to a funeral. George Floyd had 6 or 7 of them. You can't go to a wedding. You got to pull your kids out of school, wave goodbye to grandma. She's back there dying alone in the nursing home. You got to put a mask on your face. You got to rub, goop on you to kill the bacteria or whatever. Don't get within 6 feet of somebody. They're out there having dinner at French Laundry. They're jet-setting around. And these corporations out there, they've already seen, we're just a bunch of sheep. We're just a bunch of baying sheep. Because we want to make sure that the stimulus check comes in, and maybe we'll get us $2,000 from the tariff money. Maybe we'll get some kind of, what happened to the external, instead of the IRS, the ERS, the external. I mean, where's that? We were promised that. Where is it? Where's the External Revenue Service? I want to see. We don't have that. USAID, boy, that was like a fart in the wind, wasn't it? They found all this stuff, uncovered all this, waste and fraud and all this crap, and then there's a little fallout so that Elon Musk can get his company back without people spitting on his cars. and Tesla goes back up to the top again as a brand. And so they fake a little fallout between Trump and Elon Musk. You can't convince me otherwise. They faked the whole fallout so that it could look like Elon could move on from Trump to save his businesses, to save his space exploration and everything else. See, we're all being played with this deal, and you can't convince me otherwise. And then we got all these talking heads out there, myself included. I don't have the platform that they do, but we're trying to punch through the smoke and say, listen, can we kind of hold the fabric of this society together? At least that's been my motivation. And then you got people out there that want to divide. And nobody trusts anything. So you don't believe that corporations have your best interest in mind. You don't believe that the media is going to expose something that's going to embarrass the powerful, because that's who signs their freaking check. And that's why the release of these files could be a watershed moment. It could be, but do you trust that it will be? Anybody? I've done honestly, it could restore some trust. But you and I know it's going to be manipulated, right? It's going to be manipulated. I'll be shocked if it's not manipulated. But if it is manipulated, this is one of those moments where if this comes out and it's manipulated, redacted, and nothing else is exposed, nobody's held accountable. And I mean, stuff's got to be accountable to the point where it can hold up in the court of law, not just the court of public opinion. If it's manipulated, it's going to destroy what little trust remains. And that ain't much. So as we move forward, I think we've got to be very intentional about our expectations. First, we got to demand the follow-through. Demand it. It's time for us to use our platforms, use our voices, demand the follow-through. You say, well, it doesn't work. Well, it did work. It did work. I mean, there were some people who have stood up and said, no, we're not going to let this thing go away. But here's the deal. If you don't demand the follow-through, it's like those executive orders that got signed by Trump. If you don't pass them through into law, they're not worth the paper they were written on. A law without enforcement is a headline without a meaning, right? You got to put some paragraphs behind this thing. Build it out. So when those files come out, the American people have got to read them, review them, and insist on the answers. Because we can't shrug and just move on. We can't let the media selectively report the safe parts while ignoring the explosive parts. And we can't allow either political party to use these documents as a weapon against their opponents rather than a tool for justice. Am I making any sense today? I hope I am. And the second thing we got to do besides holding them accountable is we got to support real reform. Releasing files is that's not justice. It's the doorway to justice. The real test is whether the information is going to lead to prosecution, accountability, structural change, or at the very least, some institutional honesty. And conservatives have got to be consistent because, my goodness, the spineless GOP and all of us that have become so governmentally dependent on things, if the names in those files belong to people on the left, the public deserves to know. If they belong to people on the right, the public deserves to know that too, because justice is not justice if it only applies to your enemies, right? And the third thing is we got to guard against this selective outrage. And boy, we got it in spades, man. One of the greatest dangers in moments like this is tribalism. Because people cheer when somebody they dislike is implicated, and they cry foul when somebody they admire is exposed. The mental gymnastics that people have used to bend over backwards to try to justify different things. That's why in a little while I'm going to talk to you about Trump's relationship with Epstein. I'm going to tell you everything. If you don't know that history, I will tell you in a few moments. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the history, verified history between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Why not? It exists. You may as well know it. The truth is out there. Why don't we look at it? Let's do that. But see, here's the deal. When people get exposed and you start cheering for one side, not the other, listen, that's not how principle works. We want to be people of principles. So if corruption is wrong, it's wrong universally. If exploitation is evil, it's evil regardless of party or ideology or celebrity. If we want to reclaim moral authority in this country, we got to model moral consistency. And so if we want to talk about the deeper spiritual and cultural implications, when society starts hiding the sins of the powerful, those sins are going to grow. They're going to fester. This is why I keep saying Jeffrey Epstein is not the disease. He was a symptom. The disease has gotten far worse. We've been focusing on fixing the symptom and not the disease. And I got a problem with that, but that's another issue I've already talked about this week. But when institutions silence victims, that's when the corruption's going to spread. And when truth is treated as a threat instead of a foundation, our trust is going to die. And the moment is not just about files. It's about the condition of our national soul. And for those of us who take faith seriously, we know that darkness can't stand in the presence of light. So if you want renewal in a nation, you don't begin with politics, you begin with the truth. So as we look ahead to the next 30 days when they're talking about releasing these files, we're staring at a fork in the road. You got one path that leads to honest transparency and the other leads to symbolic transparency. We don't want that. That's the kind that pretends to reveal something while actually hiding it. Because one's going to strengthen trust again. The other is going to destroy whatever trust is left. When I say this is a watershed moment, a fork in the road, two paths to follow, I'm not kidding you, because one path is going to expose wrongdoing and the other path is going to protect it. One path is going to bring justice. The other one is going to maintain power. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to find out which path our institutions choose to take. But here's my challenge to all of us as citizens, as Americans. Don't watch this passively. Don't let this moment just kind of slip by without paying attention. Don't accept excuses and delays and more selective reporting, and don't allow politicians or pundits to turn this into a circus that's designed to distract you from the core question. The question is not who gets exposed. The question is what changes because of it. What reforms follow? What culture shifts? What systems get cleaned out instead of covered up? Because we're living through a moment right now where the truth is, I think, is finally, in a way, being forced out. It's difficult for me to speak in imperative extremes. Like I want to say this is what's going to happen, but I can't say that anymore because I don't have the trust. But apparently, if truth is finally being forced out of the shadows and truth is coming to light, accountability becomes possible, but accountability only becomes reality when citizens refuse to settle for less than that. So we got to stay alert, man. We got to stay engaged and we got to stay principled. And when the documents come out, and I think they will, the entire country is going to have a decision to make. Are we going to confront what's revealed? Are we going to demand justice even when it's uncomfortable? Will we pursue truth even when it implicates people we once admired? Or will we let the moment fade because the truth demanded something from us? So I just leave you with this on this thought. Justice doesn't come from the institutions alone. It comes from the people who refuse to be lied to. And you've been lied to. Because transparency is not a gift, it's actually a right and a privilege. Accountability is not optional, it's the backbone of a republic. And the truth is not dangerous, it's actually liberating. So it's a defining moment for America. These next few weeks are going to reveal whether our nation still has the courage to face truth head on. And we'll be watching, we'll be asking some questions. And I hope we don't settle for anything less than full honesty. So we got to stay sharp in this. We got to stay principled. We got to stay engaged. They want the outrage, but we can't let the outrage win because the future of accountability in this country depends on people just like you and me, okay? And that's where we are. You guys with me? Let me see some of those American flags in there. See what you guys are saying. Love you guys so much, man. Let's talk about my friends over at Birch Gold. One thing is certain. Gold has gone through the roof. Stock market's doing some interesting things. And you don't want to lay awake at night trying to figure out if the dollar is going to collapse or the 401k is going to stand because of, the volatility of the stock market. Gold and silver is going to be there. And Birch Gold wants to help you diversify your future retirement plans and your savings in a tax-sheltered IRA that is backed by physical gold. I want you to get the information kit from them. It's free. It's no obligation. Text CHAD, I spell it Chad, to 989898. Text CHAD to 989898. They'll send you that free no obligation information kit, and you can decide for yourself. But I need you to do that. Just text. The number is 989898, and just text your message, Chad. It's very simple. And Birch Gold will help you out. So if you got that savings sitting there, that old 401k, get it over there to them. Let them give you some advice on how to back up your future with physical gold. Okay, gold has gone through the roof, man. It's insane. And Boom, 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 boom. Text Chad to 989898. Thanks, Eric, there in the chat. My man Eric over there, he been picking up the slack while Party Foul Steve's out there playing in the woods, man. Can I just talk to you guys about this? And if you're just joining us, be praying for David. He's sick. He's sick. He's under the weather. He might not even be alive. I don't even know if David's alive over there. Up in Portland. Doesn't got the HIV. He's been around too many furries, man. I don't know if you guys have joined my Make Wellness team. I'll tell you what, dude. I've been back on the peptides pretty hard. And Make Wellness is solid. Such a good company. I was down in Cancun 2 weeks ago with them. Such a good company, man. And Linda, nobody cares if Fidelity manages your money. Linda. Send me some money, Linda. I'll let them manage mine, too. Oh, by the way, go join Above the Noise. Actually, the website is Join Above the Noise. You got to put the JOIN in front of it, joinabovethenoise.com. And join our little courses we're doing. Getting deep in the scripture, man. And I want to do that with you for a minute now. I'm going to get to the deal about Trump's relationship with Epstein, but let me tell you something that if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, everything that I just said, everything you know or think you know about Jeffrey Epstein, you know what it boils down to? It boils down to this, and I want to talk to you about why people do what they do. It's the essence of sin, okay? We talked about that this morning on Before the Noise. Sin. We talk about failures and falling and stumbling and mistakes. No, God calls it sin, okay? S-I-N. Selfish, independent negation of the will of God in your life. Sin. All right? We do that. Why do people do what they do? You know, you step back from the headlines for just a minute, from Epstein and the release of files and all that, and you look at the deeper current that's running under all of this chaos surrounding the Epstein files. You step back and you look at it, because right now we sort of miss the forest for the trees. There's something symptomatic there that we need to focus on, because if you only look at the surface, you're going to miss the real lesson from all of this. I keep saying that Jeffrey Epstein was the symptom, not the disease. When I tell you that, the Epstein scandal is not just about a man, it's about the human heart, okay? We have evil, plenty of it in our world, always have. But if you look at the spiritual condition of the world that still hasn't figured out why people do the things they do, I'll tell you, it's about sin, it's about temptation, it's about power, it's about corruption. And the scary truth is that darkness doesn't flow from institutions first, it flows from individuals. Do you want to know why you don't trust the institutions? Because you don't trust the individuals. Because we got bad individuals running what should be good institutions. People are greedy. The love of money is the root of all evil. The Bible doesn't say money is the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. And I could say pretty much the same thing about power and control. People love to be in power and control. Influences everybody. And those individuals realize pretty quick that they have the ability to game the system by getting inside, embedding themselves in the inner bowels of these institutions, and they corrupt the whole deal. It's rotten. See, the Bible, it doesn't treat sin like a list of mistakes. It treats sin like a disease of the heart. It's not an action. Sin is a condition. It's not something you step into. It's something that lives inside of you unless something greater drives it out. And so when the Bible talks about sin, it uses words like slavery and blindness and bondage and corruption and deception. And it paints this picture of a person who's not merely making bad choices, but a person that's being driven by desires and impulses that they can no longer control. So if you want to understand why powerful people exploit the weak, if you want to understand why corruption becomes a breeding ground for more corruption, if you want to understand why entire networks form around evil, you need to understand the Bible's definition of sin. You look at Genesis chapter 4. I talked about this yesterday. Cain and Abel. You know, the old story of Cain murders his brother. God gives him a warning. He said, and it's not a lecture on behavior. He gives him a diagnosis. You go read Genesis 4. God says, sin is crouching at your door and its desire is for you. That's the first time the Bible ever describes sin. It's not an act. It's not a mistake. It's a predator. It's something crouching, something waiting, something hungry, something that wants to master you, something that wants your heart long before it wants your hands and feet, okay? And that's the part of our sin culture. I should say this, that's the part of sin that our culture doesn't understand. Sin doesn't begin with an action. It begins with a desire. And so you have a guy like Jeffrey Epstein that comes along. He's got a desire that most people can't fathom. They can't understand. They're like, oh, this is the most evil thing amongst us. But it's out there because it's a craving, it's a thought, it's an impulse that becomes ultimately a permission. And when you give yourself permission to do it, then you find ways to justify it. Justification becomes secrecy, and secrecy becomes a habit. This is what we're dealing with this Epstein nonsense. And those habits become bondage. So sin rarely reveals itself in public until it's first built a throne in private. And by that time, a man has become a predator, and the battle was lost long before his actions ever hit the surface. So the Epstein story, are you guys with me? Are you even here? Anybody sound the alarm? The Epstein story is not merely about sexual exploitation or power abuse. It's a picture of what happens when sin gets fed and protected and celebrated, excused, normalized, and empowered. And it happened in these certain circles that became this basically societal network of people who were protecting each other of normalized, disgusting behavior. And it's a warning about what happens when desires are never denied and when accountability is never applied. So you give somebody $1 billion and they've got no accountability. God only knows what they can come up with that is just gross and sinful. Now, it's easy for us to point at the billionaires and the elitists and say, yeah, that's what they do. No, it's us too. It's a good word right there. I like that, KB. Hedonism. You're justifying whatever you want to do that feels good to you. It's just hedonistic behavior. But it's kind of scary when it starts getting insulated and protected by the powers of our world. And you want to know why people do what they do? You want to know why people do what they do? Well, that temptation was just too big for me. No, the Bible actually tells you, James chapter 1 says no one's tempted by God. It says instead each person is drawn away by their own desire, and when desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death. And I think that's the clearest psychological, spiritual, and behavioral model ever written. Desire, sin, death. That's the pattern. Starts with desire. Leads to sin. Sin leads to death. There's no headline today that does not follow that progression. Everybody's like, well, everybody want to talk about the Bible. I do, because the Bible's got the clearest picture and analysis and diagnosis of everything we're dealing with in our planet today. I mean, here's a book written thousands of years ago that's still dialing our number every day. And if you want to take it deeper, you and I live in a culture that believes that sin is out there, it's external. Like I got to go out there and get it. That I sin because of an environment that I'm in. No, you sin because of pressure. You sin because of trauma. You sin because of circumstances. But Jesus, you think all those things are true, but that's not the case. You're not sinning because of what you've been through, because of your circumstances or environment. You're not. You think that, but you're not. Jesus flips that upside down. The Gospel of Mark, chapter 7, he says, it's not what comes from outside that defiles you, it's what comes from within. And then he lists off the sources. Tell me if this doesn't sound like the elitists and the power-hungry people that are out there. He says it comes from envy and lust and greed and malice and pride and arrogance. There you go. And he throws in foolishness too. And these are not things done to you. These are things that already live inside of you. So you ask the question, why do people do what they do? I see that all the time. Oh my gosh, how could somebody do such a thing? I'll tell you how. Because unless the heart is transformed, the heart is corrupt. It's not neutral. It's not wounded. It's corrupt. You want to know why you're hurting today? Because you got a corrupt heart. You want to know, and I'll tell you, the reason you're hurting is you're not going to go get help for your heart because your heart's corruption is going to keep leading you away from the truth because you don't want to get into the things that's truly going to heal you. So the heart is corrupt. Corruption always looks for an outlet. It always looks for an opportunity. It's always looking for a place to grow. And the shocking truth is this: sin is not content with small influence. Sin always wants to seek escalation. So what begins as internal curiosity becomes external compromise, and what begins as secrecy becomes a routine, and what begins as a thrill becomes an addiction, and what begins as an addiction becomes identity, and once sin becomes identity, people will defend their sin more aggressively than they'll defend their own dignity. So the Epstein story is the escalation of unchecked desire. This is what we talked about 6-7 years ago on the special episodes that I did. You get on YouTube and you search Chad Prather, Jeffrey Epstein. I don't like having my name in that same search bar, but you pull that up and you'll see those old episodes. It's the story, it's the escalation of unchecked desire, the fruit of a heart that worshiped pleasure and power until it became incapable of compassion. It's a heart that was no longer satisfied with normal boundaries. It was a heart where conscience had been drowned under the weight of indulgence, a heart where sin had matured to full-grown death. So this is why the Bible never offers sin management. It offers new birth, because a new heart, new nature is the only thing that's going to fix the sin nature, because you can't reform sin. You can't educate sin. You can't therapize. Is that a word? You can't give therapy to sin. You can't moderate sin. You got to kill it. And Paul said, the Apostle Paul said, I got to kill that spam call coming in, speaking of sinful. Paul said, put to death the deeds of the flesh. Jesus said, if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Not literally, spiritually. He's using extreme language for a deadly enemy. And this is where the good news enters into the story, because if you only talk about sin, you end your life exhausted and condemned. But the gospel says something evil can live in you, but someone stronger can move in and drive that out. And that's the Spirit of God, who doesn't rehabilitate sin. He replaces it, he dethrones it, he breaks its chains, and he severs its power. And that's why Jesus came, not to make bad people behave better, but to make dead people live. So if you don't want to see the disease of the symptomatic issues like a Jeffrey Epstein, if you want to get that out of our society, I just gave you the solution. It's Jesus. How about that? You say, yeah, but no, there's no yeah, buts, and I don't apologize for it. I'm telling you, you cannot moderate sin. You can't do it. That type of desire that escalates people to the point where their heart gets hard and their conscience gets seared and calloused, and they make decisions based on their own hedonistic desires, you can't put that through a self-help book. You know why people do evil? Because without the Spirit of God, without the Spirit of Christ living in them, the human heart is a stage where sin performs its plays. It's playing this little scripts out in your head all the time, because it wants. Let's see how far we can go. But let me give you a little clue. Sin never performs for free. It always charges a ticket cost. And that's your integrity, that's your purity, that's your relationships, that's your conscience, it's your peace, it's your future. It's your health. I mean, I can go further. But listen, people do what they do because without Jesus, they're slaves. They're slaves to their impulses. Tell me I'm wrong. Somebody tell me I'm wrong. Slaves to their impulses, slaves to their desires, slaves to the cravings that promise pleasure but deliver destruction. Go out there and eat that sack of Oreo cookies. Oh, I just can't put them down. Guess what? You're going to get fat. You're going to get fat because you gave into a craving that felt good in that moment, but it's going to deliver destructive results. Sin makes promises it can't keep. Keep on eating that cookie. It offers satisfaction, but it always produces emptiness. It offers freedom, but it produces a chain of bondage. It's going to offer power, but it always produces shame. So when we look at this Epstein debacle, we're not staring at a mystery. You can release all the files you want to hold people accountable based on the names that are there if you can prove their guilt. But you're not staring at a mystery, you're staring at a mirror. Okay, we're watching what happens when sin matures, when temptation gets fed, when desires go unchecked, and when conscience goes unprotected. Because when secrecy becomes a lifestyle and accountability disappears, that darkness is going to become comfortable and it becomes a thing. Like there's a network of it. And so now we're looking at this moment in our culture where it's not just a national scandal, it's a national lesson here. You know, it's a reminder that the greatest danger to a person is not what they face from out there, but what they carry inside them. And that's the scary part. It's a reminder that institutions are corrupt because individuals are corrupt. It's a reminder that the cure for human behavior is not better laws, it's new hearts. That's why the gun laws, you're not going to change. You're not going to make another gun law to make people stop shooting each other and stop violence. You're not going to start because people got to get a new heart. Anybody? What was it that God said to Cain? He said, sin's going to crouch at the door. It's waiting to consume you. Its desire is for you. But through Jesus, I can't do anything today. I can put the top on a bottle. I'm fired up. Through Christ, you don't have to open the... Let me start over. He said, sin crouches at the door. If you got Christ in your life, you got Jesus in your life, you got the right focus, the right standard by which you'd make your decisions and determine your life and your choices and your direction, you don't have to open that door because sin desires to master you, but the Spirit of God empowers you to master it. And that's the hope the world can't offer, and that's the truth the headlines refuse to preach. But I'm preaching it, all right? People can like it, lump it, I don't care. You can turn me off. You can say, you know what, used to follow Chad, then he got all Bible thumper. Well, let's thump that sucker. You can turn your attention to a relationship that's become a political and moral lightning rod. You can look at all these different things out there and say, well, I don't like this person, that person, and you act like you know something. I'm telling you, the only thing I know anymore is that the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life through Christ Jesus our Lord. That's the only thing I know anymore. I'm just going to preach what I know. All right, I got a few more minutes. I'm going to tell you, as I promised, I'm going to talk to you about this relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. I put a little, Linda said, thump that sucker. Let's go. Pow. Get my book board for meeting. All right. I did a little research, went back, we looked at some old notes, and let me just turn your attention. You want to talk about Epstein and Trump, right? Decades. That was a relationship that goes back decades. So, you had high society glamour and you had the shadows of criminal scandal. All right. So it's like a Hollywood story. But I want to show you through all of this what it says about power and your proximity to it and the lack of accountability. And so I want to walk through this little timeline. And through it, I want to ask what it reveals, not just about these two guys, but the system that they inhabit, okay? So you go back to the late 1980s, early 1990s, and Trump and Epstein, they were moving in similar circles in Florida and New York. Not unusual. Epstein purchased a mansion in Palm Beach. Trump had just purchased Mar-a-Lago. They're appearing at social events at the same time. Of course, people can say, well, they were together. Well, I don't think they came in the same limo, all right? But they were together. Pictures are taken. They're shared parties. They're photographed. And you can look at that. I mean, the trolls are going to throw those up ad nauseum. In 2002, Donald Trump told the New York Magazine, he said, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. Now, we've heard that, right? Now, you got to ask, how does a wealthy businessman and a dark financier become social companions? For Trump, Epstein's elite access with Palm Beach and New York high life, it kind of fit the scene, right? For Epstein, his network benefited from names like Trump, like it put a stamp of approval if he could use Trump as clout. So it's easy to dismiss this as simple socializing, but the proximity matters because when you attend the same parties and travel on the same jets, and yes, the records do show that Trump flew on Epstein's plane several times in the 1990s. He used Epstein's plane, to be clear. He wasn't going down to the island, and there's no evidence of that. But at that point, you're not merely acquaintances, you're part of each other's orbit. Now, the line there, fun to be with, we sometimes forget that Trump did speak about Jeffrey Epstein publicly. Show the quote about, he said he loves beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. Okay, that was said in 2002, right? So hang on a second. That public admiration at a time when Epstein's darker inclinations were already being whispered about, it not only shows some social comfort, but it shows a moral compromise. See, you guys want to see, we have this tendency to want to forget who Donald Trump was, where he came from, what he did in his past. There was a lot of moral compromise, okay? You can't justify that. Now, that's not me pointing fingers and judging. We've all had moral compromise, but Donald Trump was in that orbit, okay? When you publicly endorse somebody you know is indulging in questionable behavior, you make a statement about your threshold for the friendship. Now, you get to the mid-2000s, around 2004, the relationship between Epstein and Trump, it shifts. So one key hinge is a bidding war. Everybody wants to sit there and say, well, Trump didn't like his lifestyle. He didn't like all this. No. Do not gloss over the man you know Donald Trump is, okay? Don't stick that halo on there too tight. There was a bidding war for an oceanfront mansion in Palm Beach. Epstein bid on it. Trump outbid him. Now, after that, according to the sources, their friendship cooled off. Then the reports came that Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago after he allegedly was hiring spa staff from the club and was behaving inappropriately with a teenage daughter of a member of Mar-a-Lago. So Trump asserted that the reason was he stole people who worked for me. Now, the bust-up of the friendship, that's kind of revealing because it indicates that once Epstein's behavior crossed Trump's threshold, at least as he now describes it, the relationship ended. But the question remains, did the ending mean a full separation, or did it simply move underground? That's an honest question. Now, in 2008, Epstein gets convicted of procuring a person underage for prostitution. Trump by then is in a more public political role, claims he's not a fan of Epstein, that he'd not spoken to him in 15 years, all right? Now, at this stage, Trump's political calculation enters in, and he needs to distance himself, but persistent images and reports keep turning up. So there's photos at parties, there's jet logs listing his name, you got eyewitness accounts, and so we have this tension that's there. You got a close association, then you got public distancing, yet you don't have any criminal charges against Trump emerging from Epstein's case. So their relationship, this is the Washington Post, by the way, says, quote, their relationship is well documented, but there's no evidence of Trump wrongdoing. That's the Washington Post. And it underscores how scrutiny continues there. The Washington Post is saying this, all right? Now you come up to present day, the 2020s. Now you got files, emails, political fallout that's happening, and the release of some emails from Epstein's estate show that he mentions Trump over 1,000 times. In one leak, he indicates that Trump knew about the girls. That's a quote. Trump, meanwhile, is arguing that the focus is a political hoax. And he's pointing to his 2007-2008 break with Epstein and says he declined invitation to Epstein's island. See, what I think Trump was talking about as a hoax was this spin that they were trying to put on it about, quote, he knew about the girls. Because in Trump's mind, everything was being made about him being a participant in what Epstein was doing. Now, for you and me, if you call yourself a conservative, Trump's base, whoever that may be, MAGA, whatever you want to call them, it's more than just some kind of fading scandal. It's a test of loyalty and transparency because some supporters, they feel betrayed that Trump had strong ties to a man like Epstein and then appears evasive by calling it a hoax. And whether you love Trump or not, the moment stands, it demands some consistency and accountability. Now, I will say this, the thing that's never sat well with me on any of it, and I don't care if you like it or don't like it, proximity breeds complicity. Now, it's not sufficient to say, I didn't do the crime. Well, if you sought the company of someone who built their life on predation, your character is at risk, and that's what we're dealing with. So public distancing after the fact doesn't erase the past. Relationships create reputational risk long after the handshake is over, and the pictures start to fade. So Trump's celebrity here, Epstein's wealth, their social circuit, it all creates this environment where accountability was unlikely because they're insulated, like I said at the beginning of the program. So the system depends on discretion and access, not truth and oversight. The last thing they want is light shining into that network. Because truth isn't just about exposure in this case, it's about reform. And I've already said, based on sin don't want to be reformed. Now here we are. We're asking for exposure, but we're also asking for reform. Because I do believe the public deserves these files. And I don't care who's on it. I don't care if whoever's on there needs to be held accountable if they're guilty of something. If they're guilty of something. But the deeper question is, what are we going to do? What reforms in culture, what reforms in elite access, what reforms in moral standard are going to be demanded? Because integrity doesn't depend on politics or party. If you're conservative and you believe in justice, you know what? We got to ask the same questions here. Because, again, we can't have that selective outrage. So when we look at these files, when we look at what's coming out, these headlines, we know there's been some abuses of power. There's been some networked relationships of people that did not lead to good things. And, again, what I said earlier about sin, whether Trump is guilty of being a part of that or not, sin is sin is sin is sin is sin, and everybody has sinned. And people who have broken the law with their sin and have victimized innocent human beings with their sin, they need to be held accountable. Now, you and I think we can agree on that, right? And I agree with you, Kate. Him consistently calling it a hoax is doing him no favors. I've said that from the very beginning. Because, it casts a shadow on it where it's like, no, we're not going to release this. We're not going to do it. It's a hoax. And then you're going to say, okay, this full-throated approval that this thing, I'm encouraging Republicans in the House to pass this. Well, it better come out, and we better see some stuff. Or it's going to look really, really bad after you called it a hoax, and now you want transparency. And if it's not fully transparent, it's going to look like you guys doctored the whole deal. So, this is about people who thought their club membership exempted them from consequences. This is about a culture of indulgence, of fun, and beautiful young women and luxury jets that masked predation. And it's about the dangerous lies that we tell ourselves when we say it doesn't matter what he did because he's on our side. Well, that's BS. So my challenge to all of us is don't let affiliation blind your judgment. Don't let convenience dull your conscience. And listen, I voted for Trump 3 times. I still support the man. I think he's the best. I mean, do we want Kamala Harris? Did we want another Biden administration? Did we want Obama 4.0 in Harris? No, of course not. Do I think Trump was the best person for the country? Yep. And I hope more of the same continues in the years to come. But I'm not going to let convenience dull my conscience. I'm willing to sit with discomfort if it exposes the truth. And that corruption isn't simply the breaking of the law. It's the breaking of character, man, because character demands accountability even when it's inconvenient, even when it's our guy. And I hope it's not. And I got my reasons. You've heard me defend it before. I got my reasons why I don't think he's a part of that network. I don't think he is. But I want this moment to be a reckoning, not just for, Epstein or whoever's connected to Epstein, but for every one of us who yearns for a republic where power bows to the truth. Can we at least agree on that? So demand the answers, watch the files, but more than that, walk away changed with it all because, listen, at the end of the day, we've all got that sinful heart, man. We really do, and we love the factious nature of it. We love to break it apart. And I want us to resolve in our own life that we're not going to tolerate proximity to evil, no matter who it is or what it is. And we're not going to excuse shady accusations and associations. You're not going to accept, well, I was young or it was a different time and that's the final word. No. Character matters. Not image, not influence, not loyalty, character. And take it from a dude who's been a shady character at times in his life. History looks back on that relationship between Trump and Epstein or whatever my or your relationship has been with sin. We don't just need to know what they did. We need to know who they were because in that question lies the answer for all of us. All of us. All right. Give me them dancing bananas. Give me an American flag. There it is. Boom, 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 boom. All right, guys, it's the hour, so I'm going to jump off of here. I appreciate you guys watching. Hit like, hit subscribe. If you're on Rumble, subscribe. And subscribe to the channel. Do the same if you're over there on the YouTube. But you know what? Let me do this. Let me jump over to YouTube really quick. You guys over there under the Google overlords. Let's see what's going on in the live chat over there. I see you guys. Look at you guys. A couple hundred people in the live chat on YouTube. Love you guys, man. I don't ever get. I need to get it set up where I can see the chats on all of them. I like it. I like what you guys are saying over there too. But join me tomorrow morning before the noise. We're working our way through the book of Acts. Get my book, Born for Meaning. And also head over to, I don't have the banner up here. I can't do it. Head over to joinabovethenoise.com, joinabovethenoise.com. If you're having troubles logging in over there, there's a deal when you put your email in there, it'll send you a magic link there on the sign up on the login page on Join Above the Noise. Hit that because they're having some password issues. It keeps wanting to kick you out. Yeah, we're working through it. Launching things is always difficult. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for being with me. Join me before the noise tomorrow morning. Don't forget to text Chad right now to 989898. Let Birch Gold send you that information that you need about your retirement plans. They're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. And get you some First Cup coffee, firstcup.com. Use promo code Chad. Woo, boy. Head over to pray13tees.com as well. I've promoted everything I know to promote. So hit like before you leave and make sure you guys have a fantastic day. Pray for my boy David. He's a little under the weather today, David Medina. And my daughter found my old book, Am I Crazy? She found it at Goodwill yesterday. I thought that was hilarious. She sent me a picture of it. She said, I found you in Goodwill today. She was somewhere in Alabama. That's hilarious. But maybe somebody will grab it and read it. It's a handsome cover, I'll tell you that. Handsome cover. Go over to where podcasts are offered. Leave us a rating and review. Do that for me, please. Let's keep driving these shows higher in the rankings. And we're gonna go to Tuesdays and Thursdays for the full hour on the Chad Prather Show beginning in December. And next week we'll be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I believe. Thursday, Friday we'll take a day off. You can have a day off. I'll let you guys have a day off. All right, enjoy that turkey. All right, guys, I love you. God bless you, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, bye. Boom.